I have a slightly uncomfortable question for you, and I want you to be honest with yourself for just a second.
Okay, I'm ready.
Have you ever found yourself reading about something objectively terrible? A crime, a huge corporate scandal, maybe a historical atrocity, and you start diving into the why of it?
The rabbit hole. Yeah.
Exactly. You start reading about the economics behind the decision or, the childhood of the person who did it or the systemic incentives that were in place.
You're looking at the mechanics.
Right, mechanics. And suddenly you feel this weird creeping twinge of guilt. Like by understanding why a bad thing happened, you're somehow letting it off the hook.
Well, absolutely. That is a universal intellectual experience. It's that fear that explanation is a slippery slope to excuse.
Right. You catch yourself thinking, wait, am I sympathizing with the villain here?
Yeah.
And it just feels like you have to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can either stand on the moral high ground and condemn the act.
Be the judge. Yes.
Be the judge, exactly. Or you can get down in the weeds and explain it. Be the mechanic. But if you do the explanation part, people look at you like, whose side are you on?
And that tension, that feeling that you have to choose between your moral compass and your analytical brain.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're unpacking today. And I have to warn you, the source material we have in the stack, it centers on a word that usually makes me want to run for the hills.
Oh, no. What is it?
Holism.
Oh, come on. Really?
I know.
When I saw holism in the prep notes, I admit, my eyes glazed over a tiny bit. I immediately pictured, crystals, essential oils, and a guy in a linen tunic telling me that everything is one, man.
It feels mushy.
Yes, that's the word, mushy.
That is the common trap.
Yeah.
We usually think of holism as this vague soup where all the distinctions dissolve and everything is just vibes.
Yeah.
But the mission of this deep dive is to look at a very specific text that argues the exact opposite.
So we aren't talking about the New Age version.
Not at all. This source is arguing for what it calls integrated cognition. It's extremely rigorous. It's not about feeling good. It's about thinking clearly.
Integrated cognition. Okay, that sounds less like a yoga retreat and more like, I don't know, a superpower?
It kind of is. The text we are looking at argues that true holism isn't a middle ground where opposites just disappear. It's a specific mental framework that allows you to hold two opposing thoughts at once, condemnation and understanding, without your head exploding.
So practically speaking, we're going to learn how to keep our moral compass while still using our brains to analyze complex systems.
Precisely. We're going to learn how to be morally serious without being intellectually lazy.
Okay, I'm listening. But we have to start by cleaning up that definition. Because like I said, holism to me means blending everything together until you can't tell the difference. Just one big shade of gray.
And that is the misconception the source attacks right out of the gate. It says very explicitly, holism isn't the negation of duality.
So it's not about picking the middle or dissolving distinctions.
Yeah.
So it's not just saying, oh, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. No, that is actually a lazy way of thinking. That's the middle ground fallacy.
Right. If one person says 2 + 2 is 4 and another says 2 + 2 is 6, the holistic answer isn't 2 + 2 is 5.
Exactly. The source defines holism as the capacity to hold opposing classifications simultaneously within a coherent structure.
Okay, opposing classifications simultaneously? That's a bit dense. Break that down for me.
Think of it this way. Usually, if we have black and white, people think a holistic view is mixing them to make gray.
Right.
But this text argues that true holism is keeping the black distinctly black and the white distinctly white, but seeing how they both fit into the same larger frame.
Okay, that's a huge aha moment for me right there. It's not about blending, it's about framing.
Exactly. And the source uses this really beautiful phrase. It calls holism the orchestration of dual structure into coherent unity.
Orchestration. I love that.
Notice that word, orchestration. Because think about an orchestra. You have the violins, which are high and sweet, and you have the percussion, which is loud and rhythmic. They are totally different.
Opposites almost.
Yeah. You don't smash a violin into a drum to make music. That would just be noise.
You just have a mess.
You let the violin be a violin and the drum be a drum, but you, the conductor, synchronize them?
Correct. And to be very specific, the text clarifies that this position is not anti-dual, post-dual, or beyond dual. It doesn't reject the duality. It organizes it. It manages it.
So if we bring this back down to earth to that bad thing scenario I started with, this means I don't have to stop calling a crime bad just because I can explain the sociology of how it happened.
Now we are getting to the stakes.
Yeah.
The source gives a very specific application. You can classify something as morally wrong, even evil, while still understanding its mechanisms, incentives, and systemic dynamics.
And those two things don't cancel each other out because, I mean, it feels like they do. It feels like if I explain the incentives, I'm minimizing the evil.
The source is adamant. Those are not mutually exclusive operations. In fact, doing both at the same time is the definition of integration.
This feels like such a relief to hear, honestly, because in the real world, especially on social media, we get stuck in what the source calls the dualistic mode. Let's talk about that. Why is it so hard for us to do this naturally?
Well, the brain likes efficiency. It likes to categorize things fast. And the source breaks down this dualistic mode by identifying two distinct failures. We tend to fall into one of two camps when we see something bad.
Okay, what's camp number one?
Camp number one is condemn, then stop analysis.
The moralist.
Right. That CEO is a monster. That politician is evil. End of story.
I think we've all done that. It feels good. It feels righteous.
It does. If we judge something as morally repugnant, we often refuse to look any deeper. We have this subconscious worry that if we analyze it, we're dignifying it.
So you just label it?
Yeah, you put it in the bad box and take the box shut.
It's the safe option. You keep your hands clean. But the problem is, you don't actually learn anything, do you?
Exactly. You've maintained your moral purity, but you are now functionally ignorant about the mechanism. If you just say the CEO is evil, you aren't looking at the quarterly incentives or the regulatory gaps.
Or the corporate culture that let that evil flourish.
Right. You aren't fixing the leak. You're just yelling at the water.
Which just ensures it'll happen again. Okay, so that's the first trap. What's the second one?
The second failure is the flip side. This is the technocrat's trap. Explain, then suspend judgment.
This is the one I was worried about in the intro. The explanation equals excuse problem.
Yes. You see this sometimes with economists or sociologists or even diehard system thinkers.
Yeah.
They start analyzing the mechanics. Oh, well, the economic incentives were set up this way and the systemic pressure was that way.
And game theory says this was the rational move.
Yeah, exactly. And they get so lost in the how that they forget the what.
They stop feeling the moral weight.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They become clinical, detached.
It's like you explain the mechanism so well that the tragedy just becomes data.
It becomes inevitable.
Oh, gravity made the rock fall, so nobody is to blame for dropping it on someone's head.
That is a perfect analogy. And the source argues that these are the traps of the dualistic mode. You feel forced to choose between being a judge or being a mechanic. You can't be both.
But the holistic mode, this integrated cognition, says, why not both?
The holistic mode allows for three things to happen at once. The source lists them: moral classification, mechanistic comprehension, and contextual placement.
All at once. That sounds like a lot of mental RAM.
It is, but it's worth it. The core logic, and I think this is a quote worth writing down, is this: understanding does not absolve. Condemnation does not preclude understanding.
Understanding does not absolve.
Wow, that needs to be on a t-shirt, or at least a sticky note on my monitor.
It is a crucial distinction. It means you can fully understand the blueprints of a disaster, every nut, bolt, and bad decision, and still stand over the wreckage and say, this was wrong. And the other side, too. Condemnation does not preclude understanding. Just because I say it's wrong doesn't mean I have to be ignorant about how it happened.
Exactly. You don't have to be blind to be moral. And you don't have to be amoral to be smart.
Okay, so that's the theory. And I'm on board. I want to be the person who can do both. But how do we actually do this? What's the mental software update we need here?
I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, because when I'm in the heat of the moment, reading a news story that makes my blood boil, it's hard to switch gears.
It is hard. But the source gives us a framework to make it easier. It introduces the concept of hands, left hand and right hand.
Okay, break that down for us. Is this literal hands?
It's a metaphor for dimensions of reality.
Okay.
So let's start with the left hand. The left hand represents the subjective and the relational.
Subjective and relational.
Translate that. This is the interior experience. This is where we deal with values, meaning feelings, culture, morality.
Got it.
When you look at a situation and ask, is this right? Is this fair? Does this hurt? Those are left-hand questions.
Okay, so my outrage, that's left hand. My empathy, left hand. My sense of justice, all left hand.
Correct. That is a relational assessment. Now, the right hand represents the objective and the structural. This is the exterior stuff.
The things you can measure.
Exactly. Systems, laws, physics, biology, cash flow, supply chains. the nuts and bolts of how the machine works.
So usually people pick one hand and tie the other one behind their back.
That is the standard operating procedure. The activist might live in the left hand, focusing on the injustice, the pain, the moral outrage.
And the technocrat or the economist might live in the right hand, focusing on the data, the flow of money, the systemic design.
And they end up yelling past each other. The left hand says, "How can you be so cold?" And the right hand says, "How can you be so irrational?"
That's the standard political deadlock we see every single day.
It is.
Yeah.
But the source says holistic cognition isn't about choosing a hand. It's about synchronizing them.
Synchronization.
Yes. The text says holistic cognition doesn't eliminate either, it synchronizes them. So in this integrated model, your moral recognition becomes your relational assessment.
That's the left hand.
And your system analysis becomes your structural assessment.
That's the right hand.
And integration is simply holding both.
Okay, let's play this out with a real example. Let's go back to that corporate fraud scenario. A company collapses because of greed. Thousands of people lose their pensions.
Okay, let's apply the hands.
So my left hand kicks in first. I see the suffering. I see the betrayal. I say, this is greed. This is a betrayal of trust. People got hurt. This is morally wrong.
Correct. That is a valid, necessary relational assessment. You are not suppressing that feeling. You are validating it.
But then, instead of stopping there, I bring in the right hand.
Right. You engage the right hand and you ask, okay, I know it's bad, but how did it happen? What were the quarterly incentives? What was the regulatory environment? How did the information flow fail inside the company?
And I don't have to turn off the left hand to ask those questions. That's the key.
No. In fact, your analysis is better because you have both. If you only have the left hand, you are just angry, but you don't know how to fix the system.
You might fire the CEO, but...
But the next guy will do the same thing because the incentives haven't changed.
Right, you're just playing whack-a-mole with villains.
Exactly. But if you only have the right hand, you might fix the system, but you lose the sense of why it matters. You lose the human cost. You might create a system that is efficient but cruel.
So the specific application is you classify it as morally wrong, left hand, while understanding the mechanisms and incentives, right hand.
And notice how much more powerful that is. You aren't compromising. You aren't saying, well, it wasn't that bad because the system made them do it. No. You are saying the system made them do it and it was bad.
That distinction is so subtle, but it changes everything. It changes how you consume news, how you argue, how you solve problems.
It shifts you from being a passive observer who is confused by contradictions into someone who can navigate complexity. You stop being a victim of the narrative.
Which leads us to the philosophy of it all. The source claims this is actually a stronger and more stable epistemological position.
Oh, here we go.
I know, $5 word alert, epistemological. What does that mean in plain English?
Epistemology is just the study of how we know what we know. The source is arguing that simply rejecting binaries, saying nothing is truly black and white, is actually a weak position.
It's unstable.
Yeah, it's unstable because it collapses into relativism.
Right. If you say nothing is black and white, then eventually you have to say nothing is really right or wrong. And that's a dangerous place to be.
Exactly. That's the mushy holism we talked about earlier. But this orchestration approach is stable because it respects the reality of the structure. It acknowledges that the binary exists, there as a subjective side and there as an objective side, but it creates a unity out of them.
It's back to that word orchestration, and orchestra implies active management.
Yes.
And it prevents what you called the middle ground fallacy. We aren't looking for a compromise between it's bad and it works like this. We are asserting that both statements are true simultaneously.
It's confidence, really.
Yeah. It's the confidence to not be bullied into picking a side between your heart and your brain.
Yes. It is an integration of heart and brain.
So we've moved from this trap where we feel like we have to choose, judge, or understand to a model where we orchestrate both. It sounds great, but it also sounds like work.
It is cognitive work. It is much easier to just be outraged or just be cynical. Those are low energy states. Integration takes energy.
But the payoff is huge.
So what here is massive.
Yeah.
This is about having a more robust operating system for your mind.
It's an OS upgrade.
It is. If you can run this holistic mode, you can navigate complex issues without losing your moral compass and without losing your analytical sharpness.
You don't have to become a bleeding heart who can't do math.
And you don't have to become a cold calculator with no soul.
You can be a warm-hearted calculator.
In a way, yes.
I think that's what we all aspire to be. But the source leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? A sort of teaser for the next level of this thinking.
It does. And this is the provocative thought I want you to really chew on. It's a question that could keep you up at night.
Let's hear.
The source asks, how does this specific form of integrated cognition prevent moral blindness without collapsing into moral absolutism?
Ooh, that is the tightrope walk, isn't it?
It is. Think about it. Moral absolutism says, I have the truth, and context doesn't matter. That leads to rigidity.
And moral blindness says it's all just context, nothing matters. That leads to chaos.
And most philosophies fail to resolve that tension. They pick one cliff to drive off of.
But this framework claims to offer a way out, a way to see clearly without becoming rigid, a way to understand the gray without losing the black and white.
That is a massive idea. It means we can have strong convictions without being closed-minded.
Exactly. And in a polarized world where everyone is screaming at each other from their respective hands, being the person who can synchronize them, that might be the most valuable skill you can have.
It's not just a skill. It's a competitive advantage.
Well, I feel like my brain has been stretched, but in a good way. Not exploded, just upgraded.
Orchestrated.
Orchestrated, I'm going to use that. I want to thank you, the listener, for diving deep with us today. This wasn't just about definitions. It was about how you process the world.
Absolutely.
So the next time you're in a difficult conversation or reading a heavy news story, try it out. Try engaging the left hand and the right hand. See if you can hold the judgment and the explanation in your head at the same time. See what happens.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.